A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man ittaba bi sunnatihi amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin, all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah we can meet for these sessions in the sessions 4. So we praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. And peace and salutations to Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we follow his path, and also may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the chance to be Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ummah, that we seek his shafa'ah in the day of judgment, in the end of the day. So dear brothers and sisters, we are going to discuss today on the fourth sessions here in the sessions for Islamic Economic System. So let us see here our learning outcomes. At least there are 4 main outcomes that we are going to address. At the beginning, explain the main ideas of mainstream economic system. Secondly, analyze the strength and weakness of world economic system. The third, we are going to elaborate critiques to mainstream economics. And last but not least is elaborate the philosophy of Islamic economic system and its ingredients. So let's come to our outline. So we are going to have this kind of outline, starting from the Western worldview on the materialism and Secularism. Afterward, we are going to have discussions on the definitions of Islamic on the economic system. Afterward, we talk about the mainstream of economics. We have the capitalism, we have socialism, we have a welfare state, and afterward, critique on Islamic economics on the mainstream economy. And last but not least, we are going to talk about the advantages of Islamic economics that we address to aspect philosophy in that point. And lastly, we are going to have some conclusions there. So let's come to beginning. Western worldview, we want to talk here in the beginning of the materialism and Secularism. As it is discussed before, when it is materialism, by means that humans' activities are motivated by and oriented to material things, such as human happiness is measured by the amount of goods accumulated excessively. So when we view on the materialism, all the things has been measured by the material. So the as much as the good that you have, by mean that it is measured as you are happy. So when we have the Secularism here, it is concerned only about the world affairs, separations between religions and worldly affairs. So in socialism also, we have discussed before in the previous studies and previous meeting by mean. So Secularism, it's the view when we separate between the religions and worldly affairs. So we cannot discuss religion through the economy. We cannot combine economy through religion. We cannot combine politics with religions and many aspects. So those are one of the basic thing in the Western worldview. So an economic aspect we have discussed earlier, Homo economicus or economic man means materialistic and hedonistic man. This is what we addressed before when we talk about the economy in Western worldview. So coming to the definitions of economic system. So what is exactly economic system? So an economic system is a means by which societies or governments organize and distribute available resources, services, and goods across the geographic region or country. So it is like the means, the tools, how the societies and government they organize the resources and to distribute this kind of resources, services, goods across the geographic regions or country. Next, a country's economic system is made up of institutions and decision-making structures that determine economic activity. So economic system regulate the factors of productions, including land, capital, labor, physical resources. An economic system encompasses many institutions, agencies, entities, decision-making process, and patterns of the consumptions that comprise the economic structures of a given community. Lastly, we have economic system is a network relationships among economic agents, which may include household, firms, government, or non-governmental organizations, NGOs. So economic system by means that what are actually the relationship between amongst the economic agents. It is can be starting from the very small agent. It's going to be household, family. I mean, next going to be the firms, governments, and non-government organizations. So those agents control the functioning of economy, which is allocate allocations of resources, including labor, capital, entrepreneurial ability, and informations to producers, be in the firms, governments, NGOs, so that goods and services are produced. So this is that mean by the economic system. Come into historical background. So a worldview is influenced by many factors, such as in ideology, history, geography, so philosophy, folklore, so customs, and many others. So capitalism born after Enlightenment and Renaissance. So when we know about the history of capitalism, it is born after the Enlightenment and Renaissance. So Secularism born after church dominations. So it is the historical background. Why do they actually appear and they come some ideas into capitalism and socialism? So French revolutions, it is also can be historical background when we know the French revolutions 1789, 1783 century from monarchs and feudalistic to republic, scholars and liberal. So Italian revolutions also 1871, unifications of Italy into a single kingdom. So utilitarianism, the best actions is the one that maximize utility. This is also the historical background why the economic mainstream today existing or it is exists. So come to the mainstream of economic system. Today we are going to discuss on the main only of economic system. The first is capitalism. Secondly is socialism. And last but not least, we are going to discuss on the welfare state, not into very deep, but it's also can be one of the alternative that we're going to discuss. So come into capitalism. Since we talk about the capitalism, it's going to be a little bit wider to liberalism and neoliberalism today. So capitalism, exactly what are the what do you say history behind it? So it's starting from the mercantilism. It is 15th until 18th centuries. So what exactly the mercantilism? So the background of capitalism itself, starting with the mercantilism itself. So it is an economic policy that is designed to maximize the export and minimize the imports for the economy. It promotes imperialism, colonialism, tariffs, and subsidies on the trade goods on the traded good to achieve that goal. So mercantilism actually based on the gold economy. So this is starting from that background at the beginning. So widely applied by many countries, including Muslim. Yes, mercantilism also ever applied by the Muslim, which is referred to the gold and silver in the matters of currency. So now there was one of the what do you say founding father of capitalism that named by Adam Smith with his book An Inquiry into the Natures and Cause of the Wealth of Nations, that we just simply said that the wealth of nations. It is 1776. So the critic on state dominated mercantilism. So Adam Smith, he criticized on the dominations of mercantilism in that matters. So afterward come into liberalism. It is freedom to act, laissez aller, laissez passer. So this is the what is it, jargon they mentions on the freedom to act. So people in the economy, they are freedom to act as long as they have their capability to do. So the main figures here, we have David Ricardo, Alfred Marshall, Stanley Jeffons, and many others. Those are the main figures here. So what are actually the basic ingredients of capitalism? So starting from the rational economic man. So they are based on the materialistic and self-interest. So people, they do the activity on economy based on their materialistic point of view, and also they want to fulfill their self-interest. Afterward, according to them, in the rational economic man, altruism is irrational. So people sacrifice their time, sacrifice their choice for another people. It is irrational. The second, which is they have the basic ingredients on positivism. So they have to come into empiricism. All the thing can be proved into empiric. So they are moral or value free. So in their case, their basic ingredients on the capitalism, it is free of moral and free of value. So independent from normative determination. So they don't have this kind of normative determinations. They are free from this kind of normative determinations. They are not influenced by the church, but they're independent based on their logical and rational economic man. Third, laissez passer. What is that? Individualism and liberalism. As it is mentioned in self-interest, so they want to fulfill their wants, as it is individualism. And also they are free to do in the market, as they have also this kind of theory on the market mechanism and perfect competitions market. That's the thing are basic ingredients of the capitalism. So coming to socialism, communism. So the objective of socialism, communism, it is equality, fraternity, justice against individualism. Because in the beginning, we have stated that capitalism, they are focusing on the individualism, self-interest, and they against the altruism. Then socialism, they oppose that idea. They want to have the equality, fraternity, and justice according to the socialism, communism. So let's come into socialism actually prior to capitalism. Starting from the utopia socialism, we have Sir Thomas More in the Britannia 1478 until 1535. We have Tommaso Campanella in Italy. We have 1568, 1639. We have Robert Owen in Britannia, 1771, 1858. We have Etienne Cabot, French, it is 1788 and 1856. We have Charles Fourier, 1772, 1837. Simon, and in French it is 1760 until 1822. Those are the utopia socialism that named by the old socialism. So starting from their thinking, from their philosophy, so it is namely started from the utopia socialism. So we have also in the modern socialism, based on the modern theories, those are Finche, we have Jonan Karp Robertus Jogetzo, is 1805, 1875, Ferdinand Lassalle, we have 1825, 1864. We have Frederick Engels, 1820 and 1895. And last but not least, it is one of the main figures. It is Karl Heinrich Marx. It is 1880, 1818. So we have 1883. So the modern socialism is brought by the idea of Karl Heinrich Marx, or we name here Karl Marx. So we see Karl Marx here because the main idea in the modern socialism is Karl Marx. The main figures of socialism it is also known as Marxism. It is Karl Marx. Karl Marx. So live the highly capitalistic era. So the motivations of this kind of what do you say, economic mainstream, they are starting from the capitalistic era. It is dominated in that moment. So what are the main ideas here? So they have three, at least the main ideas of the Marxism or socialism here. The first is dialectical materialism. They have historical materialism. Secondly, continuous conflict of interest between labor, yeah, that is proletarians and the capital owners, or we say bourgeois. So third, we have state should be eliminated through revolutions as its act as a passive machinery. So it is a state that like for the should be eliminated through the revolutions by the oppositive machinery, perfect socialist, and is going to become into communist. So what are actually basic ingredients of the communist here? Or by means that socialism here. The first is eliminating individual rights on the productions factors and replaced by state. Features, scope, and type of industry refer to social needs. Development such as plan, action, supervisions conducted by state. Lastly, is going to be income distributions by state. So wage determined by the labor need and other factors formulated by state. Those are four basic ingredients of socialism. So let's come into critiques on capitalism. There are some critiques that we can address to capitalism. First, critique on the rational economic man. Yes, because they are self-interest. They want to have their individualism. Secondly, critique on self-interest versus altruism. So they just only focus on their self. It is self-interest versus altruism that, according to them, it is against the natures of economic man. Altruism. The third critic on positivism, because why? All social science are ideologies in disguise. So actually, exactly all the social science is not free from value, because why? It is as natural going to be science. Social science are ideologies in disguise. So for critique on the market mechanism, perfect competition market. So when we have the failure, Great Depressions on 1930s, so it is the Great Depressions we have. So based on the materialism and also socialism, so they want to separate between spiritual and come into the material from human beings. Lastly, inequality of income and wealth. As we can see today, there are inequality, too much equality between the richest and also the poorest. So it come into inequality of economy and wealth. So come into critique of materialism, Socialism. So the first ignore normative and moral dimensions. So because in Socialism, materialism, so they ignore some kind from normative. It's kind of the revelations. They against this thing, ignore this thing. Against religions, ignore spiritual and non-material dimensions of human beings, and richest countries does not necessarily means happiest country. This also can be uncritic to the materialism, Secularism. Come into critic on socialist-communism. So the critic on historical materialism. So critic on conflict, not simple motivated by material things. For the example, like religious conflict, and not only between two classes, not only to proletarians and also bourgeois. So according to them, religion is opium. So religion is the opposite mean. So according to the socialist communists, you have to come out from any religion. It is because opium. So critic on eliminating individuals' right in a flavor of state. So there is no any individual right in the terms of social communism. An effective economic system, and lastly, the failure of income distributions. Even though they want to have justice, but it is failure to have income distributions. So come into welfare state. It's just only at glance, dear brothers and sisters. So reduce negative impact of liberalism as found in the pure capitalism. So there are some thinking that they want to have this kind of what do you say idea. They want to reduce negative impact on the liberalism as found in the pure capitalism. So the role of state are there. So instead of just only on the market perfect competitions, the state they have come into the world. So the first momentum after the Great Depressions, 1930s and the World War II. Best the market system, but reduce market imperfection and replace market failure by state role in economy. For the example, regulations, nationalizations of main corporations, labor associations, empowerment, optimizations of fiscal policy, and etc. So critique on welfare state, it is still based on the materialism and Secularism. Fail to overcome poverty, imbalanced economic distributions, fiscal deficit, and employment, etc. Ignore normative ethics or moral and economic policy. So this is some critics on the welfare state. So dear brothers and sisters, come into the philosophical foundations of Islamic economic system. So what is exactly? The first starting from Tawheed, because Islamic economics, the things come at the beginning, very foundations of the things, the main core of philosophical foundations is Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is totally commitment to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to Him as only sovereign power. Secondly, ibadah, worship, as the objective of human endeavors to seek the pleasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any activity is within the boundary of Sharia is an actions or act of ibadah. Economic or non-economic activities both include into ibadah. So third, we have khilafah. Human beings are created with the role of khalifa. It is mentioned here. inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. It is to be the vice guardian of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by mean that we have to make prosperity to human beings, human welfare here. Fourth, we have amana. Human beings as economic agents are responsible to society, environment, and ultimately to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amanah can be translated as human beings are accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have to adhere to His guidance. Those are the four philosophical foundations of Islamic economic system. So come into key operations principle of Islamic economic system. There are four things here, starting from itqan, professional, work efficiently, masterfully to obtain the perfect and maximum result as has been entrusted. So when we want to do in the operational, so we have come into the principle of itqan. It is professional. Secondly, adl and ihsan, come into the justice and benevolence. Third, we come into ta'awun and tanafus, cooperations and competitions. So yes, we know about cooperations and also competitions. So we have the word coopetitions. So it come into competitions, then we do cooperations inside in that matters. Fourth, we have accountability and responsibility. Is masaila are going to be into mas'uliyah. It's going to be accountability, accountability, and also responsibility. So come into the goals of Islamic economic system. As we know, as Islamic teaching school is rahmatan lil alamin, to be blessing for whole world and all human beings. So it is rahmatan lil alamin. Then what is exactly the goal of Islamic economic system? It is achieving falah, which is the balance, or which is a balance between material and spiritual well-beings. So not only focusing into material, but also Islamic economic system, they focus into spiritual well-beings. So this can be done through maximizations of human beings within the framework of Sharia and the moral norms of Islam. So it can be done through two things. It come into the framework of Sharia and also come into moral norms or ethic in Islam. So come into the basic ingredients of Islamic economy. The first, starting from revelations, wahyu, and also rationality and intellectuality come into akal. So revelations we know starting from Al-Quran and As-Sunnah. The revelations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also prophetic traditions, it is going to be his sayings, practice, and also decisions. And come into rationality and intellectuality by means that how our ulama, how our Muslim scholars, ancient Muslim scholars, they are doing to this kind of activities. Secondly, falah is the main goals, welfare of all human beings. So not only particular person, particular community, but all human beings. That in the principle of falah, later on we are discussing on maslahah, that's come into maqasid sharia. So against riba, usury, gharar, uncertainty, so mindset and speculation. Yes, exactly in basic ingredients of Islamic economic, against riba, gharar, and maisir. So Sharia and Islamic moral norms are the regulatory framework. So it must be into harmony, Sharia and Islamic moral norms, ethic, in order to build the framework of our regulatory. So fifth, we have market and distributive justice. Yes, we know about market and distributive justice in the way of Islamic economic, not in the way of capitalism. They mentions about market perfect competitions. So Islamic philanthropy instruments such as zakat, infak, and sadaqah. So we have wakaf in order to have economic growth. So Islamic philanthropy instrument, it is kind of instrument that can be done through wakaf, infak, and zakat itself. So I think that's all that we can discuss today. Q&A, inshallah, we are going to be done in the class. Maybe something that you still curious and need to be clarified, then you may ask in the class. And ma'ati bitamaniyati bitawfiq wa najah, aqulu qali hada, subhanakallahumma bihamdika, asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.